Yo guys, what is good? So today we are talking about the iPhone 5 and pretty much how it holds up in 2018. And looking around the body, honestly, it's just like every single other iPhone. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the body. If you haven't seen one in real life yet, I'll be super surprised if you haven't seen one. In my opinion, I always thought that the 5 and the 5S and the SE obviously were some of the best looking iPhones, but I think the iPhone 10 now has taken that place. And this phone came out in 2012, so this phone is actually over 6 years old now. And if you think about it, and I said this in the other video as well, like this phone is literally as old as a kid who's in first grade, which is kind of crazy to me. You know, I don't have any kids, but like it's just crazy to think that if I'm looking at a kid, like be like, yo, that kid is as old as my iPhone 5. Now looking at the front, it's still super good looking, as well as the back. Now this is one of those iPhones that doesn't have a fingerprint sensor, which honestly at the end of the day kind of sucks, but it does retain the headphone jack, so at least it has that. Now turning on the phone, you have iOS 10.3.3, which was the latest version that this phone supports, which is a pretty good thing actually, because iOS 11 has been kind of a weird roller coaster, so at least it kind of ended off in a good way. And just overall performance of everything is honestly super surprising. If I were to compare this even right next to like an iPhone 6s or iPhone 7, obviously it's completely slow. But when you're rocking this thing in just your hands and you're not comparing it to anything, you'll be surprised by how fast you might think it is. I mean, it's like, as long as you remember that it's like 6 years old, it's really not that bad of a device. Now, would I use it every single day as a daily driver? Obviously not. It's still super slow. It's a super slow device, but multitasking and everything is super slow. One of the biggest problems with this phone is that with heavier tasks, such as even like Snapchatting and Instagram and stuff like that, the phone does heat up quite a bit. Now, I'm not sure if that's a 10.3.3 problem or if it's just the iPhone 5 problem right now, but it's just kind of weird that that is the case. And gaming is okay as well. I mean, it really just depends what you think okay is. I would probably rate it probably like a 5.5 out of 10. And small games, like I've said before, are okay. Temple Run, Pew Pew, all those games run fairly well. I mean, you're not going to run into too many problems, but when it starts coming into even like somewhat heavier games like Balloons, Tower Defense, or something along those lines, this phone really does take a toll, and you'll start noticing like towards the end of maps and stuff like that when you're playing Balloons, which in my opinion is one of the greatest games ever made. You'll see how it just glitches up and just skips frames here and there. Now, I don't know if I recorded a video or not, but I've played it on here before pretty recently, and it's just weird that that's the case. But simple tasks and simple games will run fairly well. Overall performance I would rate though is probably somewhere between a 5.5 out of 10. Now, the worst part about this particular phone is the battery life, and I used this iPhone as a secondary phone for a little bit of time. You know, I was using it for Snapchat and Instagram and stuff like that, and honestly by the time I unplugged it, I usually unplugged it around 9 a.m. When it got around like 1 p.m. the battery would already drop down to like 60%, and I would not even use the phone yet. So it's really weird that that was the case, which in my opinion kind of makes this phone completely unusable, because if the battery doesn't work, then the phone's not going to work either. So I would highly suggest, if you were to get this phone, replace the battery immediately. They're really cheap on eBay now, and then it won't take you that long to like, you know, swap out the batteries and stuff like that. So that's where I'd leave the battery aspect at. It doesn't have good battery life. Now, you might get a gem and it might be used, and the battery life might be good, then that's perfectly fine. But in my opinion, the one I have, the battery's deteriorated like a day job or something. Now, here's one of the aspects that I'm like completely like astonished by. The cameras are very decent for a phone this old. There's a 8 megapixel camera on the back and a 1.2 megapixel camera on the front, and they're honestly pretty decent cameras. If it's your last option, it's not a bad option, honestly. It's not going to replace my DSLR, it's not going to replace my iPhone 6s Plus or iPhone 7 Plus or anything like that, but it's capable of getting some really decent shots, and especially if you go outside and get, you know, some of those highlight shots, it takes super nice photos. But once you come indoors, of course, it starts getting a little grainy, especially with the front camera. So, and there's also no slow-mo video or any like crazy features like that, no live photos. So to some people that might be you know, a deal breaker, but for me, I'd probably give the camera like a 5.5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10 as well. So to sum up, is the iPhone 5 worth it in 2018? To a lot of people, if it's your first iPhone, and you know, the age range I would recommend this phone to would be anywhere from like, you know, like 9 years old to like 15. If you're older than 15, you probably have a job and you probably have something like this. You probably want a more stable phone. And if you're from 9 to 15 years old, you know, it's probably not that big of a deal. So like a first phone is a first phone. At least you can have iMessage and all those features. So there's that. Or if you're older, if you're like 50 years old or above and you don't care about having a super, you know, premium phone and stuff like that, I mean, this just to think that this phone was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and now you can pick one up for like 50 or less than 50. But if you're in between 15 years old and 50 years old, I would highly suggest you not to get this phone. If it's a trap phone, if you're going out and you know you carry your phone with you or something, then maybe it's a good idea. But other than that, I would stay away from this phone. You're good where you're at, dude. Just like get the iPhone 6, get the iPhone 6s. Do not get the iPhone 5. So overall, I would rate this phone probably somewhere between like a 5 out of 10 for me. And guys, that is pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down if you guys have any questions or anything. I'll be happy to answer. Like the video as well. If we can get like 400,000 likes, I'll probably like do a giveaway or something. I don't know. I'm already doing it. Oh, and I'm doing the Xbox One giveaway as well. So I'm still doing that. In order to enter, subscribe to the channel, and I'm in all the social networks. So if you've missed that in the last couple of videos, you know, now is your chance. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.